Hello, I'm Rabbi Elton from the Great Synagogue in Sydney, and our personality today is Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, known as the Ramban, or Nachmanides, born in 1194 and died in 1270. The Ramban was trained initially as a physician, and that's how he earned his living for some time. But he's known to Jewish history for his extraordinary contribution towards our Torah literature. He was already seen as a prodigy in his teens, and his first major work was an attack on those who were criticizing the Rif. A few weeks ago we talked about Rabbi Yitzhak Al-Fassi, who was a rabbi in North Africa around the turn of the first millennium of the Common Era, who produced a work called the Halachot, in which he summarized and gave conclusions of all Talmudic discussions on Jewish law. This work made major inroads into Northern Europe because it was so easy to use and so accessible, and began to ease out and put pressure on existing customs and rulings of the rabbis of that area. And there was a backlash. So Rav Zerachia Halevi wrote a work in which he tried to refute the conclusions of the Rif of Rav Al-Fassi. And the Ramban, in his first major work, offers a defense of Rav Al-Fassi of the Rif and tries to uphold his rulings against the critiques of Zerachia Halevi. So his first intervention was really a polemical and a controversial intrusion into an existing argument between halachic authorities. His use in the yeshivas is based very largely on his chidushim, on his novel expositions of the Talmudic text. He contributed to that Torah literature which does not comment in a running commentary like Rashi does, for example, but instead writes short essays, or at least paragraphs, on major themes in each area of the Talmud, and these become invaluable in understanding the text. The Ramban's Chidushim are known for being very difficult, very hard to study and to work out their meaning. There are other Chidushim by other writers which are much more easy and accessible, but the Ramban's contribution is so important that we nevertheless maintain them as part of the major yeshiva curriculum. He was not only a rabbi in terms of being a scholar, but he was also a communal leader. He was a rabbi of his local area in Spain, and so when King James of Aragon was persuaded by the Dominicans to organize a dispute between representatives of Christianity and of Judaism, he was selected to be the representative and the spokesman for the Jewish position. His opponent was Pablo Cristiani, who was a Jew who converted to Christianity, and the Ramban put the Jewish view. They appeared in disputation before the king, and each side wrote an account of what took place, and who won depends on which account you read. What we do know is that the Ramban put the Jewish arguments forcefully and with great eloquence, and as a result he was not executed or persecuted or imprisoned in Spain, but he was forced to leave. And so he went to the land of Israel. He went to Jerusalem, where he settled and taught there, and in fact founded a synagogue which is still in existence, known as the Ramban Synagogue, after his acronym. In the latter part of his life, he wrote a commentary to the Torah, which is printed in every major edition of the Rabbinic Bible, alongside Rashi and the other major commentators. He criticizes Rashi's commentary, although he held it in great respect. He also was a respecter of, but also a critic of, the Rambam of Maimonides. And when there were controversies swirling around his contribution, both in terms of law and in terms of philosophy, the Ramban tried to defend the Rambam's dignity and his honor, but nevertheless critiqued elements of both his philosophy and of his legal rulings. In particular, the Ramban was much more skeptical about the whole philosophical enterprise. He was much more mystically inclined. He didn't want to rationalize away all miracles and say they were allegorical, but really believed and taught in the literal truth of miracles in the Bible. He was much more rooted in a supernatural tradition than the rational tradition of Maimonides and others. It's been said that if you learn the commentary of Rashi and of the Ramban on the Torah, you get 90% of what there is to say on each verse, and no one can be a thorough student of the Talmud without also learning the Ramban's commentary. And so his contribution has been immense to our Jewish learning, and he's still a figure which looms very large in Jewish discourse today. Thanks for joining.